The Avery salvage sign is a bitter reminder of a difficult time in these parts. Today, blue ribbons hang from the sign for Teresa Halbach, so she's not forgotten in the media frenzy of making a murderer.
That was all my daughter.
She shared the image on Facebook.
We all got a heart, and people out there, they just don't think we do.
You know, part of what we felt we were witnessing was history being erased. We really couldn't tolerate that. And it was really like, well, what price are you willing to pay to ensure that this story gets out there, a more complete story gets out there? Because there wasn't much talk about the lawsuit as being relevant to any of this. And it was so appalling, in my opinion at least, that the Attorney General's office didn't take it more seriously and do something meaningful with it. So we felt like that was a very important part of the story, and we didn't want it to be lost. And the other thing is, in terms of...
That department in Manitowoc County had an agenda and was not being forthcoming with what could have been exculpatory evidence as far back as 1995, and therefore are very suspicious of the politics of that department at the time of the second crime and investigation.
Let's go back to the key for a moment.
Okay.
This was not the first time that officer had been in there either. He'd been on multiple searches, and they were never supposed to be in there. They had been told not to be in there at all. So why were they even trying to be in there? And specifically, that officer who had been deposed and who was personally on the line in the civil lawsuit. How do you defend that?
Yeah, I think there's a problem.
And it was seen as an extremely biased account of the facts and evidence.
Then, instead of putting more evidence tape on, they put cellophane tape. That's the problem with this case. They didn't put another piece of evidence tape and sign that and date it.
Oh, and you don't know if it was because it was being tampered or if they were going in there legitimately. But if they were doing it correctly, you always put another, there's levels of tape on there for every time they go in, and the person initials it and dates it so they know every single person that's going in there.
Right. Various types of burnt bones and teeth were found on Steven Avery's property. A bone with a partial DNA profile was recovered, matching Halbach.
The prosecution argued in the closing was maybe the cops did plan a couple things. Well, maybe they did. But there's a ton of evidence showing these guys did it, including Teresa's bones in the fire pit outside of Steven's trailer. How do you explain the bones being there?
They were moved there.
While in prison for the Bernstein conviction, Avery is said to have shown his cellmate a picture and plans for a rape and torture chamber that he had personally designed.
I mean, conservative media itself is a very big business. It is very slick. It is very successful as an entity.
But now, to survive in woke culture, you have to become a liar. You have to pretend that you think fat is beautiful.
When luminol was applied to the stain, it gave a faint bluish glow, which indicates a blood stain.
We are being told that you have to lie repeatedly in order to survive in corporate culture.
Not in the bedroom. There was blood in the garage that lit up with luminol. But it wasn't the type.
There was no blood in the garage.
There was blood in the garage that lit up with luminol, but they couldn't type it. They couldn't get any DNA matches out of it.
There was no blood in the garage. It's completely false.
Well, there wasn't any blood on the mattress, right?
There was no blood in the mattress. That's right.
How did this happen?
While the documentary suggests the sheriff's department only targets Avery, investigators look at the entire Avery family. 12 News is there as they round up 7 of Avery's relatives to get DNA samples, including Avery's brothers Chuck and Earl. Both have sex-related convictions.
They know us and trust us, and now this is happening, and are we going to include it in the series? So there were a lot of conversations of course we have to include this. You know, we're not taking any sides. We never take sides, but we have to document what's happening. They already knew that this was what Kathleen was doing, and they knew we were following Kathleen's process. But it's a very strained time in the family that has a ripple effect to our ability to access people as well. But from what we hear, ever since Kathleen filed the motions that included those names, things understandably have been very hard for those individuals, and it has done a lot to sort of...
What did you know about these filmmakers?
Actually, they just struck us as
students. They came in and introduced themselves and said, you know, we're students at NYU, and we read the article in the New York Times, and we said, this is crazy, huh, isn't it? And we're gonna just be here. And they showed up every day and seemed to be working hard. We're very polite, very humble. They certainly portrayed themselves as people who had a lot to learn, very often asking our photographers for technical help. Very good team players, nice people.
You established it as November 3rd.
I didn't make a murderer. I convicted one.
Or maybe you said, well, what about this? I didn't see it.
What I found missing from the documentary was some of the stuff that we had reported on heavily, which was the background of Steven Avery and the background of his family, and his brothers had rap sheets. There was reason for law enforcement to be very familiar with this family, and it may not just have been they lived on the wrong side of the tracks and weren't Manitowoc upper crust.
Do you think that you sexually assaulted your daughter? Did you ask her specifically if she had sex intercourse with Steven? What did she say?
She said no. To this day, she says she's still a virgin, my daughter, so I don't know.
It's going on elsewhere too, on your property. Cars being crushed, some of the things not being documented properly. We can go on and on. We can go out there and go through your books right now if you like, and do an audit and make sure that taxes and everything are being paid the way they're supposed to be, and that payroll is being handled the way it's supposed to be. And oh, let's not forget cash. Do you see where I'm going here? Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you a series of questions here, and all I want to hear out of you is a yes or a no. Okay? Okay. You understand that? Yes. Do you think your brother Steven is the sexual deviant? Yes or no?
Compared to what he did with my daughter, yes.
It was even one of my own children. I don't know. I just felt miserable for them.
Previously, Avery's family claimed his innocence. Earlier this week, Fox 11 interviewed sister-in-law Candy Avery, who insisted someone was trying to set the family up.
When they take the evidence out of the vehicle and stuff, it'll come back to somebody.
But the DNA evidence found in Halbach's vehicle has changed her mind, and now she's furious with being lied to by her brother-in-law.
Oh yeah. He betrayed the whole family. He had the whole family fooled.
Sarah Thompson has new details on a different case mounting against Avery, this time being reviewed by the Brown County District Attorney working as a special prosecutor.
Sometime between September of 2003, when Steven Avery was released from prison, and 2004, a woman alleges Steven Avery sexually assaulted her. This, according to Brown County District Attorney John Zakowski. The case, he says, never developed enough for charges to be filed.
That's pathetic.
That all changed when officials started investigating the Teresa Halbach murder.
And then during the course of that investigation, some statements came out which have now brought this referral to the point where it can be reviewed.
Zakowski won't say if it was Steven Avery or someone else that made these statements which add merit to the case. He will say it does involve only one woman, and he believes the victim alleges this happened just once.
And that's sick.
In this situation, we're going to put a lot of stock in what the victim feels, how she feels, and whether or not it's in her interest to go forward.
But Zakowski says he will treat this allegation seriously and separately from everything going on in the Halbach case.
Zakowski says his role as DA featured several highlight cases. The Mon Files case is the big one Zakowski has wrong.
John has done some good things for Brown County. Unfortunately, he got the Mon Files case wrong, and 5 innocent men and their families continue to pay for that.
Zakowski has stood by his prosecution of the men, with one later being exonerated.
Fortunately, there are very few regrets there.
However, in a statement, Governor Scott Walker says he appointed Zakowski because his extensive qualifications and community involvement make him an ideal candidate to serve.
Kathleen Zellner is launching an independent investigation.
They did not like it that we came here from another state. You know, this is a closed club here.
Call us animals? Them guys ain't no better.
Earl Avery still believes his brother was framed by Manitowoc Sheriff's investigators Andrew Colburn and James Link.
What bugs me the most is that Colburn used to be my buddy, and I don't understand him. I don't understand how he could do such a thing.
Pagel said they were trying to determine if anyone else in the Avery family was involved in the murder.
They call us murderers, they call us everything else in the book.
People pointing fingers at you and saying maybe it was you and Chuck.
Yeah, it was just a bunch of bullshit.
They didn't like it that we came here. Then they really didn't like it that we found all this evidence.
So she's going to try to ruin a happy family. He's got 2 kids that he's got to worry about now.
All right, we talked about it, a new trial. Ultimately, if he got a new trial.
Who took the pictures?
My wife, Barbara.
No, who took the picture with the camera? Bobby did that?
As you know, it's tough to get a new trial without some blockbuster new evidence, a confession from somebody else, an eyewitness who would come forward, or of course, there's always that option with some...
Carla, I don't know if it's good information, bad information. Who do I talk to about this, the girl that's missing from Hilbert?
All it is sex. Him, Blaine, Bobby, it's all sex.
I'm very interested, Earl. When you became aware that Bobby was taking this picture and that this stuff was going on, when you decided to have, you had to have been enraged.
Yeah? So they look up pictures. Big deal. Well, they're at that age. They say that's a part of our thing.
Here, they're stating that that stuff could point to a possible motive.
What, looking at pictures? Big deal.
There was nothing on my fucking computer.
He believes that allegedly Earl Avery and Chuck Avery helped Bobby Dassey cover up this crime by crushing Bobby Dassey's blazer when Steven says there was absolutely...
What did you do? What? Your brother Chuck, when he forced himself on your wife. When he forced himself on your wife and, you know,
Put his head through the back window of his house.
But your brother is doing this sort of thing. I find that very... if that were me, I think, and I were in your shoes, why are your brothers treating you like this?
But that was a long time.
Do you think they're taking advantage of you because you're the nice one in the family?
I don't know.
I think he deserves another trial completely. Well, yeah, he was railroaded.
His brother Chuck.
Goodbye.
Well, we'll leave if you'd like us to.
I gotta go.
All right.
She's doing, and she tells us flat out, she's like, legally, I don't have to do this, but practically, I know I need to do this. I need to try to develop what's called a third-party theory of liability, meaning I have to try to figure out who actually killed Teresa Halbach. And if I can do that and get back into court, then I can flip this case. And so one of the threads in her through line is her trying to figure out if it wasn't Steven and wasn't Brendan, then who was it? And so she does develop a third-party theory, and she has suspects, and she files that with the court. And so what we're putting out there is actually part of the public record, because she does name names. Because essentially what the post-conviction lawyer is trying to do is trying to get back into court and say, look, Your Honor, you've never seen the complete picture, or I have a fuller picture to present to you, and it's material, it's important, and you need to look at this new evidence.
The key pieces of evidence that Kathleen Zellner uncovers or is ultimately given are, there's a trove of digital evidence that Brendan Dassey's brother had of pornography, child pornography, violent pornography that was never shared with the defense. There was also human bone evidence that emerged that was in a place on an adjacent property to where the prosecution said Steven had committed the murder. Anybody in the Teresa Halbach camp, in their family, who has begun to question whether justice was really done?
Not to our knowledge, but I mean, quite possibly, but they certainly haven't reached out to us. So.
Like Moira said, we haven't spoken to the Halbachs about the substance of anything.
Okay, last question for both of you.